Guess what? I can. Look at that.
I actually do hear it.
Air guitar, baby. Oh, Ty, look at you. All embarrassed with your Detroit Lions shirt.
Mike, this is not embarrassment. This is pride. And you know why? Because I'm proud of my Lions. My Detroit. They're not my Lions, but just happy about it.
You know what? You're happy about it, and that's a good thing because guess what? The Lions finally got their win in the playoffs. I mean, first one. I actually saw something today, meme on Instagram. They went 0-16 in this century, and they still beat the Dallas Cowboys to the conference final.
Yes,
I did see that.
Did. I love those Cowboys stats. They come out every year. All the
Isn't
jokes.
it
Great.
I also saw one that said the only two teams in the current century who have not gone past the playoff round is the Cowboys and the Commanders. And
I saw that.
Yeah,
I mean, the
It's
Cowboys
incredible.
They must have a record.
Are now 3 wins in AT&T Stadium, while the Cowboys now have 2 playoff wins.
Oh my god,
That's okay. Dallas, we all know, sucks. But anyway, we can move on from there.
The Cowboys must have a record for most playoff appearances and worst record in playoffs. But anyway, we could talk about the Cowboys all day, but we are going to get into it. Welcome to episode 10, and we did it indeed. 10 full episodes of the Fantasy Fools podcast. That is the Fantasy Fools football podcast where, we go over fantasy for all things football related. And today we hit episode 10. So congrats, guys.
We got into 2 digits, boys.
So I'm Tyler Scott. I'm joined by Michael Sean and Jordan Patrick. And today we're going to go over quite a lot of stuff from both last week and upcoming for this week for our upcoming divisional round playoff games, which is exciting. And I think this whole playoffs beginning and playoff series has just been really exciting. Super stoked for my Lions to make it as far as they have. I think a lot of teams we've kind of expected to be where they are, but there were some surprises along the way.
There were some surprises indeed, honestly.
Yeah.
Like going into this last week, I mean, I was genuinely surprised in both Houston. I think everyone was surprised in Houston, but then also the Green Bay Packers. You're talking 2 different teams that were pretty much supposed to be rebuilding this year and kind of seeing where they were at. Well, I think they're seeing, and I think they're liking their future. I am. I mean, I think the Packers and the Houston Texans are going to be going places, and they might find themselves in this next round within a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be very relevant in next year's drafts. Those 2 quarterbacks, Jordan Love, CJ Stroud. Of course, I think they're going to be easy top 8 picks.
Yeah, and one of the things that surprised me the most about that matchup specifically that we're talking about is really the amount of pressure that the Packers were able to put on the 49ers. The 49ers are one of the best teams and could potentially be the best team in the NFL right now. And to see that the Packers stayed with them, especially with this young team, was just really impressive. I did not expect that. And it kind of makes me think, if this was the Packers week 1, where would they be right now?
Man.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think if Jordan Love looked the way he does now in the beginning of the season, you're talking about a totally different team. They may have been up there and not necessarily just squeaking into the playoffs with the 7th seed. They may have actually won their division.
I do think, yeah, absolutely. We're looking at them potentially winning the division next year. I know that they're
Better watch out, Ty.
They're changing defensive coordinators, I believe, and then. Here's a bit of a difference, though, in terms of CJ Stroud and Jordan Love in fantasy value and what I'm looking at next year. I look at offensive coordinators a little bit, or not offensive coordinators. I look at contract extensions a little bit and who's going to be getting paid a lot. It's going to be Jordan Love is up for an extension. So his pieces might diminish a little bit. The Texans have the benefit of CJ Stroud is in the first year of his 5-year contract. Because he's a first-round pick.
Definitely an interesting team, and definitely a big one to look out for. They're loaded on wide receivers, and they just probably need just a running back to really make that team whole that can pair with Aaron Jones. But I think that's one of the teams that we all have on our radar going into this year's fantasy draft in August and September.
Yeah. Now let's.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But anyway,
I think we should go into the trifecta at this point, right, guys?
Round trifecta.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about divisional round trifecta, and we're going to start off. This is our reoccurring segment where we give our surprise pick, our consistent pick, and disappointment pick for the prior weekend. We're
10 episodes in. They should know what it is by now.
They might, but you never know. We might get new people, Jordan.
I'm kidding.
We should be getting new people based on all of our vast increase in plays, apparently. So we're getting new people. I'm glad to have you guys all aboard. Thanks for listening, and hit that subscribe button.
All right, and we can end the episode there. Thanks for listening. Mike, it just sounded like you're exiting us out there, but
no, I'm just trying to repeat the segment here and basically say, hey, please start following.
All right. Anyway, let's move on. So my divisional round playoff surprise of the week was actually less, and Jordan, I appreciate what you said last episode about defenses and how we don't look at the defenses often because they don't provide much fantasy value, but my surprise of the week is Frank Ragnow, and he's the center for Jared Goff on the Detroit Lions. And this guy was my surprise. And while he doesn't provide direct fantasy value, he provides the necessary coverage for your quarterbacks, or in this case, Jared Goff, to be able to throw the ball. And let me just highlight something. Frank Ragnow is expected to play against the 49ers with 4 listed injuries: his toe, his knee, his back, and his ankle. He played through that. In this last divisional round week. I mean, this is a guy who is showing his toughness and bringing it where it matters for this Detroit Lions team, and learning and reading more and some articles more about his injuries that he experienced last round. It just really, against the Buccaneers, it had to be my surprise.
I mean, I agree. I think that's actually a great pick, Ty. You're right. We don't typically look at defenders, and quite frankly, and defenders are offensive linemen. I mean, these are huge players and huge parts of the offenses and defenses and of the team in general, of course. So when you actually start to highlight some of these guys who don't necessarily carry the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball, it brings light to people who really make a huge difference. Because if you have you could have the best quarterback in the entire NFL. If you don't have an offensive line, I'm a firm believer that there's nothing they could do. There's nothing they can do, and they're going to be shit. So, and
not only that, to kind of piggyback off your comment about quarterbacks and centers, an offensive line and defensive line, the linemen really make a huge difference. If Jason Kelce truly is going to retire, that's going to make a huge difference for Jalen Hurts' value next year.
Yeah.
Oh, I love what you brought up. I've been thinking about that too. I want to talk about it on this podcast, but that is not where we're at, unfortunately, right now.
We'll get into that in another episode.
Absolutely. We are going to get into that.
Give the listener something to look forward to. I see what you guys are doing.
100%. I love it.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
No. I put everything down. You just don't ever pick it up. But anyway, I'm going to move on from Frank Ragnow, and I'm actually going to go into my surprise for this week. So my surprise came also on the Lions, except for it's a player you typically are used to having him just go off. I know I'm happy I have him. If you guys have been listening in the past episodes, you might even know who I'm talking about. It's Sam Laporta. Now, why do you think he went off? Well, maybe you'd think that he would have taken a step back, given the fact that he ended up bending his leg completely in the wrong direction a couple weeks ago. But you know what? He came back, and he still put up 20 points in a PPR league, 9 receptions for 65 yards on 11 targets. He was still a focal point of that offense, even though he had it taped or he had it braced. I know they did some work to it, but he still looked good, guys.
Yeah. Sam Laporta has just looked huge this entire season. I mean, he is definitely one of the best rookie tight ends that I think the NFL has seen.
Of all time for fantasy.
Right. Yeah, especially for fantasy. And he is just he's doing the job. I mean, Dan Campbell's done a great job of putting this team together. I know a lot of people gave the Lions an average rating on their draft for the last year, and I think this team is showing that they made the right draft picks.
Yeah, absolutely. And sticking with the theme of the Lions, I'm going with Jared Goff. man, he is playing well. I like the way he's played. Honestly, through both weeks, he has the highest completion percentage out of any quarterback playing this postseason. He had 2 touchdowns this past weekend, 0 interceptions again, and 287 yards, which I believe was the second most of the week. He is playing great. And the way I look at it is he's in my top 8. Might kind of be like a semi-sleeper, not like, a true sleeper. But I think, he's going to be the quarterback I look to get in maybe the later rounds next season.
He's someone who's going to be available too, which is going to be great because no one really thinks Jared Goff for players as far as fantasy quarterbacks go. But he actually was looking real good, and I think from him, it's not even just him playing well. He's got so many weapons, just so many weapons to throw the ball to.
Yeah, and Jordan, just piggybacking off your comment, Jared Goff is ranked number 2 right now in postseason yards. He's actually number 2. Pat Mahomes is 3. Jordan Love is 4. But number 1 is actually Baker Mayfield. And
oh my God,
he is our number 1 postseason stats. Yeah, which is crazy. But
he has the difference between him and Goff: 2 interceptions.
Yep, exactly.
Which leads to the more yards.
Which leads to a big deal, especially fantasy wise. You're getting those minus points, and another thing to say about Jared Goff and just the Lions in general. Another thing I look at is offensive coordinators. If Ben Johnson gets a head coaching job, who's going to replace him as the offensive coordinator, I think kind of plays into Jared Goff's value next season.
Yeah, I agree. But anyway, moving on to my consistent of the week. And, as we're getting down to smaller, less and less teams, my consistent of the week, it's got to be Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this guy, 27 years old, he's going to be 28 next year. And I still want to be my number 1 pick next year. You don't see this. This is unheard of. He's incredible. He had just performed so well against the Packers. He rushed for 98 yards on 17 carries and had 2 touchdowns. He also had 7 receptions for 30 yards. I mean, he explodes. Christian McCaffrey, I would say, is 70% of their offense. And, he just consistently puts up numbers. No wonder why, he's ranked so highly. And, that's why he had the fantasy ranking of number 1 in the 2023 fantasy season. He is that good.
He really is. He is that good. And I mean, the scary part is I'm going to agree with you in every facet other than the fact that he's 70% of that offense. That's what makes this 49ers team so scary good. He is that good. He puts up that many yards. He catches that many balls. And he's not, in my opinion, 70% of that offense because they still have Deebo Samuel. They still have Brandon Ayuk. They still have George Kittle. They still have so many other people to go to. And the fact that you're now topped off with this Christian McCaffrey superstar running back who was just basically handed to him on a silver platter by the Carolina Panthers back in the day. I mean,
my God,
damn, good for them.
That was worse than the DeAndre Hopkins trade back in the day.
I mean, don't get me wrong. They gave up a haul for McCaffrey, but in the end, it still wasn't worth it. They still gave up the better asset somehow.
Oh my God.
But moving on from McCaffrey, I am going to stick with another running back in my consistent player of the week. And I am happy to say, as long as nothing changes here in our little trifecta triangle here, that it's going to be the last Detroit Lions player on this trifecta. I promise, guys. But I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs. And
this
Jahmyr
really
Gibbs,
just a Lions podcast.
It really should be.
Yes.
College dream. It's a secret plan.
So I'm going with Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, right off the bat, I'm going to say, the 5 out of the last 7 weeks, I'm just going to put this out there. He was a top 5 running back in fantasy. 5 of the last 7. So immediate superstar just right there, right? Now, going into this past week, 9 carries, 72 yards, 1 touchdown, and another 4 receptions for another 40 yards. The dude can do it all. He's explosive. I mean, I can honestly say he is probably my top running back that I'm looking at next year, if I'm lucky to get him in like a later half of the first round. I mean, because I think he can fall that far. I think people will pass him. And just looking at him, he's got more skill, I think, than almost anybody else in the league. I'm including Bijan in there. I just think they're on the same level. I really do. I just think people are, for whatever reason, undervaluing Jameer a little bit more than they're overvaluing Bijan.
Yeah, and I would agree with you there only because the Lions offense is explosive now, and I expect him to still be explosive going into next year, which means they're going to use him.
Yes.
They're going to use him on the ground game, and they're going to use him through the air. And I don't know what to expect from Bijan Robinson on the Falcons next year. And so, yeah, I think if you were to ask me right now, I probably would draft Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of Bijan Robinson.
Right, and I definitely agree with that. I think he's in the RB1 conversation next year. In terms of Bijan, we got to see who the coach is going to be. For example, if Bill Belichick ends up being the coach, I might be looking at Kyle Pitts as the player who might explode and benefit from that. Not really Bijan. Not that Bijan's bad, but Jahmyr Gibbs is more in the RB1 conversation for me than he is.
Yeah, I agree. Coaches do play a large part in that. Bill Belichick loves to throw the ball, and he's not as much of a running guy. Bijan can catch it, but that still probably means more opportunities for those wide receivers and tight ends. But
at least an RB by committee.
Yeah.
So moving on to my consistent, I'm going with Josh Allen. So he did, Josh Allen things. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 throwing touchdown, over 250 yards combined. He didn't get the win. So in terms of real football, that sucks. But he continues to just do things that, are great fantasy-wise. It shows why he was the number 1 fantasy player this season. And overall, and I expect that to continue next season.
The scary thing is it will continue. It'll continue next season because he is year after year after year after year. He's just always
a fantasy king.
That guy. He really is. I mean, I'm looking at Sleeper here right now. If I go to Josh Allen and check out his previous seasons, right? 2023 finished PPR format, number 1. 2022, number 2. 2021 through 2019. I'm sorry, 2022 and 21 and 20, 1. He had to fall to 8 in 2019, and still, that's it. He fell to 8. You're always getting a top performer in Josh Allen.
Yeah, I do agree with that perspective. The only hesitation I have is Josh Allen loves to turn the freaking ball over. I mean, he had the second most interceptions, second to Sam Howell. And I get it, but man, his fantasy value right now are his legs. That is, I mean, he wasn't even the top touchdown scorer this season. Jared Goff had more touchdowns than Josh Allen. And so while I think the value is there, I do worry as he starts to age. He loves to throw his body around. Passing. He loves to throw his body around. I get worried about drafting him at the number 1 pick next season as a quarterback because of his risk. It's a risk when he's throwing his head first, and just the number of turnovers, just something to be mindful of. And there's so many factors that go into it, but that's just some things on my mind.
Yeah, and I think we'll go into projections next season and who we would pick above him.
Yeah. Yep. But anyway, moving on to disappointments. My disappointment for the divisional round playoff week is Zay Flowers. For a team that got 4 touchdowns against the Texans, I really was hoping, and I really thought that Zay Flowers is going to be a bigger part of this offense, but it turned out Lamar just did it all himself. Zay Flowers, 4 receptions, 41 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, you're lucky this isn't a fantasy week because he would have been a huge disappointment in a matchup where the Ravens scored quite a number of points.
Oh, I totally agree with this pick, actually. I think Zay Flowers, being he's the number 1 receiver in that offense. Mark Andrews is out, which we're coming up to it later, but he's coming back this week. But Mark Andrews was out. Isaiah Likely was in, and he's been proven, right? He actually has shown that he can catch the ball, but you're talking Zay Flowers is their guy. And if he put up a dud, shows they're not really tossing the ball all that much. He only had 5 targets, 4 receptions for 40 yards. I mean, it's not really a whole hell of a lot. And it just goes to show what Lamar can do on his own.
Yeah. And again, I go back to that point of these QBs who are getting so many fantasy points, they're aging. Lamar is aging. He's 27 years old right now, going to be 28 next season. And
how old are you, bud?
What I'm saying is they're not going to be
a professional athlete.
Yeah, come on.
Running a whole franchise.
Do I look like a no? What my point is that these guys are not going to be able to use their legs in the next couple seasons, and it's going to slow them down from a fantasy value. And if they can't throw, they're going to have an off season. The only time I'm ever going to defend Pat Mahomes is that he can do both, and you've even seen him slowing down on his run game. So I love the conversation, and but just something to think about.
It's interesting that you bring that up. We'll see how it all turns out. That does tend to be the style. You want a quarterback who can throw on the move too. Pat Mahomes, you're right, has definitely matured as a passer, shown what else he could do. But I think in terms of, what we've seen, Aaron Rodgers used to throw a lot more on the run when he was a younger quarterback, and he still played well as he aged. But we'll see.
No, you're right. Actually, Aaron Rodgers was another good example of that. He's a guy who's really good at passing the ball accurately, but he would actually scramble, and he was known actually for being a pretty good scrambler.
And throwing on the run when he was younger.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, it's a good segue because the person who you just mentioned, Aaron Rodgers, is pretty comparable, in my opinion, to the guy who I actually have as my disappointment of the week. I'm talking about another quarterback who, again, he can scramble a little bit. Didn't have to do it much in college, but he's been a prime-time thrower of the ball. He can put it in pinpoint accuracy right into the receiver's hands. However, he did not do it. He did not do it this past week, and I'm talking C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud, rough week. You're talking the Texans put up only 10 points against Texans put up only 10 points against Baltimore, and that touchdown that came was actually on the defense. It was a punt return. So C.J. Stroud went 19 passes completed for only 175 yards, 0 touchdowns, still 0 interceptions. But overall, he just couldn't get that offense rolling, which was a little unfortunate. Nico Collins was the only guy who really produced and saw anything.
Barely.
Really missed Tank Dell out there. But that's really it. He just had a dud of a game.
Yep. I think you're right, Mike, in terms of CJ Stroud. Was a dud of a game. He's a rookie. It's rare to see rookies do as well as he's done so far in the playoffs. But I still have really high hopes, especially because of one thing you said, no interceptions.
Oh, yeah.
He's been the
king of no interceptions.
You know what?
He's
Baker almost won against the Lions, but he threw 2 interceptions.
Mm-hmm. You could say the same with Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
Joe Flacco. They lost in the wild card round because of 2 interceptions, turned 2 pick sixes against the Texans.
CJ Stroud is actually tied for the least amount of interceptions this season, and he was tied with shoot, I just had it. Crap, where was it?
You can maybe fact check.
And I'm sorry, Kirk Cousins. That's who it was. Now there's some other guys like Kyler, Will Levis,
which is not fair because Kirk Cousins was out half the season.
So therefore, I would say Kyler had the best.
CJ Stroud.
CJ Stroud. Man, I'm losing it today. CJ Stroud had the least interceptions in a regular season.
I do believe CJ Stroud. You may be able to correct me here. I don't know how. There's so many good rookies this year. There were so many good rookies this year. I would agree with you. He's probably going to get it, but I do think it's going to be close with like him, Sam Laporta. You got Jahmyr Gibbs again.
Yeah.
There's so many good ones. But last thing before I let you go into your disappointment, Jordan. I'm sorry, but CJ Stroud. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you're looking at it, Ty, I think he also had in the NFL the best touchdown to interception ratio because of how little interceptions he had, didn't he?
Yeah.
Is that a stat you can see or no?
He had 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. I don't have the actual ratio, but I think if you're doing just quick math, I think you're right. I think it was almost 4.
It's almost 6.
Over 4 touchdowns per interception.
Almost
6, yeah.
So, yeah, that's good. Very good.
Man. Okay, so going into my disappointment, it's got to be Stephon Diggs. For somebody who every year sits there and watches the confetti go off. It goes nuts for the Chiefs colors. What the hell? Like, he gets so excited. And he's like envisions like the Bills colors in that. And Then he gets 3 receptions. And
I know.
Yards.
The worst part.
Bummer.
The worst part about Stephon Diggs, in my opinion, was not the fact that he only had the 3 receptions. It's not like he was it's not like he wasn't a part of it. He actually had 8 targets, and the worst part is it should have been in his hands, right? He had 2 huge drops, one of them with about 8 minutes left in the game, and it was a long ball from Josh Allen. They were down by 3. They were going for it. He should have had a touchdown right there. Went right through his hands. Like, he had 2 bad drops that basically lost the Buffalo the game.
Last comment on it. Oh, Tyler, you go ahead.
Nope, you go. I wasn't going to comment.
Last comment on Stephon Diggs. Theory, he's going to want off the Bills. Bill Belichick is going to be the Falcons head coach. He's going to get Kirk Cousins, and Stephon Diggs is going to the Falcons.
And in that note, do not get Stephon Diggs next season.
Yep, I agree.
Theory, reuniting Cousins and Stephon Diggs.
Let's not do that. But what we will do is we'll continue on with some other honorable mentions that we had from last week. So wrapping through this real quick. Didn't want to take too much of your time going into last week. We got to get into this one.
I want you to wrap it.
I can't do that. That's going to be our 100th episode, maybe. Hopefully you guys forget about it by then. But moving into it, honorable mentions. Houston again got wrangled.
I'm adding it to the future episodes.
I am deleting that immediately. But again, like we already talked about, Houston got completely wrangled by Baltimore. They just couldn't get CJ Stroud couldn't get anything going. But on the other side of the ball, Lamar did it himself. Like we already said, Lamar actually only had 152 passing yards in the whole game. They won 34-10, 152 passing yards. But the thing is, here's the kicker. In those 152 passing yards, he had 2 touchdowns, 100 rushing yards, and 2 more touchdowns with those. Dude's an animal. MVP. Going into the Green Bay Packers game, Jordan Love is looking great. He's looking to get a payday, and he will get it. Brock Purdy had a shaky game, in my opinion, but you know what? He got it done when it mattered, unlike Jordan Love. Now, again, Jordan Love looked great, like I said, but the problem is, like every other Packers quarterback who has actually come through and proven themselves, they always have that moment when it's a minute, 2 minutes left in the game, they go down, they get a game-winning drive, they burn all the clock, and they get that touchdown. Jordan Love had his entire opportunity right here. He tossed it to interception. I think that might be worth noting. But Brock Purdy did that exact thing. And guess what? They won the game. Moving on to Detroit. Jared Goff keeps the Lions' dream alive, even though Mike Evans had a phenomenal game.
He really did. I mean, gosh, there were some moments in that game where I was worried that the Bucs were going to overtake them, and Mike Evans was such a huge part of that. Actually, funny, Mike Evans, if I wasn't probably had 2 options, Mike Evans was going to be my other surprise of the week just because of his crazy performance. I mean, he just absolutely killed it.
Someone to watch next season. Where's he going to be? I'm curious what how his fantasy value outcome is going to be next year.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I think he stays, and I think he stays. I think Baker stays, and I think it's going to be more or less the same. Yep, I really do.
I believe he is the only, or has the most seasons in a row with 1,000 yards or more, and he's done it every season.
Yeah,
like 7 in a row.
Guy's impressive. I mean, he really threw his body on the line for that game. What was that one touchdown?
He's going to be a Hall of Fame receiver.
What was the touchdown? He had an 85-yard reception or something, or like a 50-yard reception to the bomb to the end zone. I mean, I hope they keep Baker. I hope they keep Evans, and I like what I'm seeing. They lost to the Lions, but again, good team. They beat the Eagles. This is a new team with Baker at the helm. So.
Man, I think they both match each other. Evans and Mayfield both match each other's strengths there. So, finally, one last game. Again, we already talked about Stephon Diggs and his troubles. I think really you can pin just as much blame on Stephon Diggs for losing that game as you can also this other player. And everybody's seen it. I'm sure you saw it on Instagram if you follow any form of fantasy football or just football in general. Tyler Bass, man, it sucks, but. That missed field goal from only like 41 yards out should be very makeable, and he was way wide too. So just sad, but the Bills are out. Kansas City moves on again.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that? Roger almost, so maybe the NFL isn't scripted because Roger tried his best to make that game go into overtime, just like what was it last year or was it the year before when the Bills faced the Chiefs and the Chiefs won in the first drive of overtime? Roger, you were so close. We thought you scripted it, but you were this close.
Almost.
Every once in a while, the Raiders go rogue.
Yeah. Man. No, they have a little tiny drone in the football, and Roger was like, "Go right."
One too many drinks, so he's like, "Oh, right."
Yeah, somebody no, you hit the drone joystick at the wrong time.
All right, Jordan, take us through the divisional round.
All right, so let's see. Divisional round. Let's talk about who won the predictions. So,
it was an exciting week.
We all picked Baltimore. I think everyone expected that. I think that would have been the biggest surprise of the week if Texans won against Baltimore.
Yep.
Then, all saw that one coming. The Packers versus the 49ers, that one was much closer than I expected. What did you guys think?
I picked the Packers to win. Yes, not because I actually thought it, but I really kind of was hoping. But my God, they looked so much better than I was expecting against the superstar 49ers.
Yep.
Man. Yeah, they were it was a fantastic game, too. It really got me excited for what Jordan Love's fantasy value is going to be next year. And, McCaffrey, I don't think he'll get it, but I think he's put up a season where he deserves to be in the MVP conversation.
It is his most rushed yards season of his career at 1,400 yards rushing. Yeah.
He is so good.
He really is. And I don't see the stat right now for receiving, but this is one of his best seasons he's had. It's like I said, it's his highest rushing yards on the season. Not his highest receiving yards, but I could get it behind that. I mean, you know me, I don't think Lamar deserves it, but I could get behind McCaffrey getting that for sure.
It's unfortunate. I would actually, in hearing that and just knowing in general how important Christian McCaffrey is, I would love to see someone who's not a quarterback get the MVP, especially given the fact that Lamar already has one. But I just don't see it not going to Lamar.
Yep.
Man, we'll see. And then, Tyler, you said Christian McCaffrey has 1,400?
Yeah, 1,459 rushing yards during the regular season. During the postseason right now, he's got 98. But receiving yards for this season during the regular season, he had 564 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns, and 14 rushing touchdowns. Which both
had 21 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah.
On that point, you said 1,400 something. Okay, we're looking at Christian McCaffrey as having a incredible season, best season of his career, like could be legendary, which just blows my mind more that he's at 1,400 something, and Adrian Peterson once had over 2,000.
You're right.
Like look at how good CMC is doing at 1,400 something, and the other guy who's passed him, I think, is Eric Dickerson, is the only other guy to get over 2,000. But moving on,
that's insane.
Yeah, isn't that insane? Sorry, I just thought that was a fun fact to share. Like, we all see how great Christian McCaffrey's been this season. Best season of his career. Adrian Peterson once had 600 more yards.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Wow. So, Tampa Bay versus Lions, the most watched divisional round game in NFL history, which is
nice.
Awesome. We all picked the Lions in this one. It was honestly a little closer than I expected. Kudos to Baker, putting up a great fight.
Yeah.
I know we've said it. I think each of us has said it. Those interceptions, man. That's what makes a difference in a game.
Yeah. And,
turnovers.
And I think
all sports.
I think one of the things that I look at too is, again, I go back to the matchups and looking forward to this next season. The Lions are a good team, and the Buccaneers beat the Eagles. They had a really good showing against the Lions. They're coming together. It just, I hope this is a precursor for next season. Sometimes it seems that way and it's not, but I hope it is, because this Tampa Bay team looked really solid and the Lions look really solid. It wasn't an easy matchup.
Yeah. Mike?
I actually heard Todd Bowles actually saying something. It was in an interview, and apparently everyone, of course, when Brady went down, right? When Brady ended up retiring, everybody immediately said Tampa, well, they're done, they're shot, they got no chance. Todd Bowles, I literally said this. He's like, wait, why is everybody counting us out already at the start of the season when we lost one quarterback? We still have like all of these other weapons who we just were Super Bowl favorites for. Like, why? Why the change? So honestly, I'm kind of with Todd Bowles. I think Tampa does still look good. They still have a lot of their weapons. And quite frankly, it's not like anyone's really aging out. The only one who I can honestly think is Mike Evans. And I just am starting to wonder if he's an ageless wonder. Yeah. I just really think he might be.
He's incredible.
Oh yeah, you're talking what, 9 or 10 1,000-yard seasons? You're talking that's impressive in itself. But
absolutely,
yeah.
Moving on to the Chiefs versus Bills game, we got Mike is the only one. I should have seen this coming. I'm annoyed because Mahomes just finds a way to beat Josh Allen.
Yeah,
it's a pattern at this point. It's a consistent thing at this point. As much as Josh Allen kills it in fantasy, Mahomes gets the dub.
It is sad. And honestly, when I chose the Chiefs, I did it mostly because of history, and I just believed in Mahomes, and I thought Mahomes would just light the lamp. And guess what? I think I said it even in the last pod. I just expected him to light the lamp. And he really had a good game, but he didn't do as well as I thought. I mean, even Pat Mahomes only had 215 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Only had 17 receptions. It was all just done on the ground. It's Isaiah Pacheco who's really the heartbeat of this offense right now.
Who surprisingly is, I think, number 2 in rushing yards postseason.
Rutgers.
Wow, man.
I know.
So Tyler and I lost the point there. Both really thought
it's okay. I gained it.
Moving on to the conference round, we got Chiefs versus Ravens, which is going to be just an incredible game. And Lions
awesome. That's going to be a great game.
Tyler, who you got in Chiefs Ravens?
So I think there's some scripting going on, and I think we're gonna have a week 1 rematch. So I am picking the Chiefs, and if I'm right, Roger, if you're listening, you rigged this shit. So I went with the Chiefs. Yeah.
I don't blame you. I really don't. I wonder why I don't blame you, because the Chiefs, they're that team that you're looking at now, and we all basically have ripped apart the team, right? And we're saying like they don't have a ton of talent, because they don't. They don't have a ton of talent. They have Pat Mahomes. They have Rashee Rice as their number 1 receiver, who is good. I'm not sitting here saying he's not, but he's not this superstar Justin Jefferson. Like, he's just not. They have Isaiah Pacheco, but they really are just changing their game to win games. That's it.
Yeah, that's what
so
the
I don't
Chiefs
blame
do.
you. I don't blame you at all. But you know what? Even against that, I still have to go Ravens. I think the Ravens are just looking too good. I think the defense is solid. I think they do have the MVP behind their helm. I know I already said that I don't think they have the weapons, but I do think Zay Flowers has a better game, and they're getting Mark Andrews back, like I previously mentioned on this podcast. That could be double-sided, right? Yeah. Is he going to be good? Who knows? Is he going to be a distraction? Yes, he will.
I just think Lamar might be in for a dud game. I think he's due. He didn't have him a lot this season, but I think it might be time, and I hope it is, because you're right. This Ravens defense looks phenomenal, and this would be the Chiefs' only shot is for Lamar to have a dud game.
We'll see. My pick is the Ravens. I almost just changed it to the Chiefs, but I ended up sticking with the Ravens. I don't know. I'm going with this. Have you guys heard the logo conspiracy theory?
I knew you were going to say this. I knew it. I knew this is going to be your reasoning. No, because you believe in the script writers. You believe that they are truly writing up all these games behind closed doors.
It's not that. It's I think Tyler's
right. It's open doors.
The Ravens defense is red hot. They're playing so well. Lamar is playing the best he's ever played. He is, talking a lot about how much he's been watching film, and he's given in press conferences his teammates lots of credit. I think he's got this, and I think, Tyler, you're right. Mahomes is due for maybe not a bad game, but
You mean
running out
Lamar?
with some Mahomes magic.
Oh, I thought Lamar was due for a dud game, but that does bring up a great point where
You're wrong.
I think Roger Goodell realized that people caught on to this logo conspiracy, so he's going to switch it up, make it a Chiefs-Lions Super Bowl, but then people are going to be like, yo, that was week 1 matchup. That's the conspiracy. So he's going to switch it up to Chiefs 49ers, who also, that's a revenge game from a few Super Bowls ago. The only team who can't win is the Ravens, so I'm pretty confident that the Ravens are going to win because there's no grudge match, Roger.
Oh my gosh!
Oh man, I love it.
No, but you've got the logo conspiracy theory, so you've got to have.
He just shot that down.
Thank you, Mike, for paying attention.
Moving on, we are going to go to the Lions 49ers now. So,
man, you went through too many for me.
all right, so going into the Lions 49ers, I got the 49ers. I mean, the 49ers do look dominant. I think their entire team is there, and their entire team is looking good. The only part that I'm nervous about on this one, and I will say this, the team does look different without Debo, guys. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Lions, after what we saw the Packers do to the 49ers, I think the Lions actually have a chance. So I did go with the Lions. I'm feeding into that week 1 conspiracy. I think the Lions have a great shot. They're a solid offense. 49ers do have a great defense, and they do like to put pressure on the quarterback. But I think this Lions team wants it more, and I think that's going to be a factor. And as voodoo as that sounds, I do think it is.
I just think that Nick Bosa is going to end up running right through that offensive line because the Lions are a good team. I'm not sitting here saying they're not, but I just think that their defense is a little bit weaker. They typically give back leads in their second half, I feel like. And I don't think their offensive line is up to it yet.
It's going to be an interesting game. They definitely on defense are not a second half team, but Jared Goff has consistently answered this season whenever the other team scores, and which is a big deal. I just think the Niners win it. They're at home. They're the more complete team.
Yep.
I don't think you're wrong. And you know what? I actually think that's actually a good thing you chose them because guess what? We're still going down to our Super Bowl predictions. And if you chose the 49ers to lose, well, then you're just wrong because then you're choosing your Super Bowl winner prediction to lose because it looks like that Tyler and Jordan, you guys
changed.
Yeah,
but you didn't hear on the spreadsheet, so therefore it's literally written down.
I hope the Ravens lose and you're out.
I hope not. So yeah, we're looking here. We all have our Super Bowl predictions in this presentation spreadsheet here, guys. We do still have Tyler and Jordan looking good with the 49ers, and I'm still in it with the Ravens. This time around, we do have our secondary. I'm no longer the only one with my second pick out of it because Jordan ended up losing with the Bills. The Bills, I did agree with him. I thought the Bills looked absolutely great, and I actually understood every bit of why he chose them. But they did lose. I thought they might too, but they finally lost, or they did lose, I'm sorry, to Kansas City again. So right now, the only person who has both picks still in are Tyler with the 49ers and the Lions.
And that's going to change after Sunday.
Oh, darn. You got to go down to 1.
And it'll be the 49ers lose, so therefore Lions win the Super Bowl. But I honestly didn't think the Lions would make it this far. To be fair, I thought they would lose versus the Cowboys, and then they ended up playing the Buccaneers. So, I mean...
How could you? You picked them.
But I really think that this is the year the Lions have to capitalize because they're going to lose Ben Johnson to a head coaching job.
Yep. But anyway, it is time. It is time to get
into
Duel of the Fools. Yeah. All right. So anyway, just to go and do a quick recap of our divisional round, to be honest, didn't do very well. And to be fair, this was, I believe, one of the worst Duel of the Fool weeks for everybody. We overall just
unfortunately
weird
not.
Things happen in the playoffs.
Yeah. So going over the divisional round, we started off with Jordan Love versus CJ Stroud. It was actually Jordan Love who came in victory with the overall fantasy value. We've got James Cook versus Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco did win that. Devin Singletary and Rashad White. It was Rashad White who came on top. Aaron Jones and David Montgomery. Aaron Jones came out on top there. We're going on to our wide receivers. We had Amon-Ra St. Brown and Deebo Samuel. Amon-Ra took the victory and was my only correct pick. Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs. Mike Evans ran away with that. So, Jordan, you got that one right. Good job. Jaden Reed and Odell Beckham. Jaden Reed pulled it off. And finally, we ended with George Kittle and Travis Kelce. Mike, I'm sorry. We gave you a lot of shit last week for the Travis Kelce pick. And I know you didn't seem happy about it, but it paid off in the end. That being said, I ended the week of Duel of Fools with one correct pick. Mike won it with 4. Jordan came in second with 3. Going into our conference championship playoff rounds, our conference round playoff games, our first matchup starts with Brock Purdy going up against the Detroit Lions and Jared Goff going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, I can't root against the Lions, so I went with Jared Goff. I'm objective.
Dude, you are just so ridiculous. But anyway, that's fine. You can choose the wrong guy again. I'm going to go with Brock Purdy because I think he's going to end up going all up and down the Lions here. And again, I did choose the 49ers to beat the Lions, so that's my pick.
I'm going with Purdy. You know, they're going to win. I'm sorry, Tyler. I would love to see the Lions win, but they're not taking out the Niners. And Purdy's had a better average game this season.
Yeah, going on to Isaiah Pacheco going up against the Baltimore Ravens, and we have him going up against Christian McCaffrey, who are facing, again, the Detroit Lions. So guess what? I didn't go with Christian McCaffrey. Isaiah Pacheco, you bet'll tweedle twinkle toes your way wrong to the end zone.
I mean, you know what? If he does, I'll actually applaud because I just don't see Isaiah Pacheco, even though he is every bit deserving to be a top 10, top 5 even running back in fantasy. He's not going against Christian McCaffrey. I mean, the guy is just a fantasy god right now. I'm choosing Christian McCaffrey.
Man, CMC, I don't need to say anything more.
Yeah, I'm not happy, but there's some.
You could always choose the realistic pick.
No, Mike, I'm objective here. Going on to David Montgomery against San Francisco, or Jahmyr Gibbs also versus San Francisco. I went.
Which Detroit are you going to here?
Well, the Lion that I'm choosing is the rookie, Jahmyr Gibbs. I think he looks. They're using him, and I think that's what it comes down to. They're using him. They're gonna need to pass the ball against the San Francisco 49ers team. They're not. I don't think they're gonna have as much opportunity to just bulldoze through the ball through the line with David Montgomery, which is what he is good at. So I went with Jahmyr Gibbs.
I kind of did the same, except for I ended up doing it not because of usage. I think they're both going to get used handedly. Last week they even did too, because Jahmyr Gibbs ended up seeing 9 carries versus David Montgomery's 10. I just think they're going to get used right off the bat, kind of the same. But Jahmyr Gibbs is just so much better in my opinion. Just nothing against David Montgomery; he's a good player, but Jahmyr Gibbs just looks so good to me.
Who I think is going to be more effective in the game and have more of a presence is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. Who do I think is going to have a better fantasy point week? I think it's going to be David Montgomery, and I think they're going to lean on him a little bit for maybe having a little bit more experience in terms of going against some of the top NFL level defensive lines, especially at the goal line.
Yeah.
You know, Dan Campbell might be like, all right, Montgomery, you've been in the league for a while. You just have a little more experience. Get it. Bring it home.
Yeah,
like he might notice it.
I could see it.
I could see it. But we'll see. Our last running back matchup, we have Justice Hill going up against Kansas City, or Gus Edwards, who is also going up against Kansas City. So we got another 2-team matchup here.
Kansas City.
I don't like any of these because I hate all of the Ravens running backs, but Gus Edwards somehow finds his way to the end zone, so I'm going with that. So that's my only rhyme and reason.
Yeah, you know what? I did have Gus Edwards because I was kind of thinking the exact same thing, but just looking at this past week, it looks like Justice Hill was he just played more. He was on the field more, and I did notice him out there watching the game, so I just changed my pick to Justice Hill.
All right, you go, Justin.
Justice. Well, this was probably the toughest matchup for me to pick, and I'm going with option 3, Dalvin Cook. No, I actually went with...
All right, pick it.
You can do that.
I'll allow it.
I can promise you it will not be it.
No, I went with Gus Edwards. I think he's going to get the touchdown. So one of them will probably get a touchdown. It's going to be Gus.
Yep. Going into our first wide receiver matchup, we have Rashee Rice going up against the Baltimore Ravens, or Brandon Ayuk going up against Detroit. Again, super objective pick here, and I pick Rashee Rice.
And super not objective pick for me, I went with Brandon Ayuk.
Super objective here. Brandon Ayuk. He's having a great season. Keep it up.
Are we just going to... All right. Super objective Josh Reynolds going up against the 49ers, or super objective Zay Flowers going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I did go Josh Reynolds again because he is a Detroit Lion.
You really got to get away from that. Although I will say, Josh Reynolds has shown up a lot. For some reason, I didn't notice him all that much, honestly, in any of the regular season games. But these playoff teams, the last 2 playoff games, he's actually been very involved. So I ended up going Josh Reynolds as well.
I went with Zay. He's going to slay this week. He's going to kill it. I think he's going to bounce back.
I do think he's going to bounce back. I really do. I just don't think it's going to be enough. I feel like Josh Reynolds has been so involved in that offense because everyone's looking at Amon-Ra.
Yeah.
And you need to. You have to look at Amon-Ra because he's one of the best wide receivers in the game. However, when you do that, Josh Reynolds seems to be the guy who's getting all those other targets, not Jameson Williams.
Yeah, and Josh Reynolds is at least getting a touchdown, and I think that is could put that matchup over the edge. But for our next matchup, we have Nelson Aguilar going up against Kansas City Chiefs, or Jameson Williams, another Detroit matchup, going up against the 49ers. If I lose this week, it's because I am
you're
objective.
A Lions fan. It's because you're a Lions fan.
So I went with Jameson Williams. Come on, buddy. Let's put on those running shoes and run some routes and catch some balls. Please.
Yeah, you do that. You do that. Well, I'm just happy that we have all these players who are Detroit players, which means they can't all have a good game. Only some of them can have a good game. So he's going to win maybe a couple, but you know what? You're going to lose some of them, and it's going to be great, which is why I'm choosing Nelson Aguilar.
I'm not thinking about those things.
Man,
I'm choosing Nelson Aguilar.
Jameson Williams. I'm with you, Tyler. I think he'll have a good game.
Thank you. And our last matchup is our tight end matchup. But we've got Isaiah Likely going up against the Chiefs, or Travis Kelce going up against the Ravens. And I went with Kelce. I was a hater last week, Mike, but now I'm a Swiftie.
I'm going Kelce. I think this is my 3rd week in a row choosing Kelce, but I just have to. I think even though he had a weaker regular season this season, he has been showing up a lot in the postseason.
Yeah, well, I do think his week 1 performance was a little weak. Last week, though, he showed up big time. But Isaiah Likely's been a little more consistent. So if Mark Andrews is out, it's a little tough. But I think it's Kelce. Especially because he's towards the end of his career. Maybe he just wants to go out and win another Super Bowl ring before he retires.
I don't disagree with you there, but Jordan, I just want to point this out. Like, you're saying he had a weak wild card round. He went 7 for 10. He had 10 targets, 7 catches for 71 yards. He just didn't get it in the end zone. Still put up 17 points in a PPR league.
Yeah.
That's an awesome tight end.
Well,
that's true.
Anyway, that ends Duel of the Fools. Looking forward to those conference championship playoff matchups. You got Chiefs Ravens at 3:00 on Sunday and Lions 49ers at 6:30. Lions 49ers being the later game. Looking forward to this weekend. Sad to see football come to an end, but hey,
excited for the Super Bowl.
The XFL is coming in the spring. I don't know. We gonna watch that? Who knows?
We'll see.
But anyway, thanks for listening. Give us a follow on Spotify at Fantasy Fools Pod and also on YouTube, Fantasy Fools Podcast. And give us a like, a follow.
Episode 10.
And yeah, that's episode 10, guys. All right.
We made it to double digits.
Enjoy your playoff matchups this week, and we'll see you next week. Have a great night, everybody, and you guys take care.
Detroit.
Let's go, Lions.
Detroit. Can't wait for you to lose all of those duels of fools. Like all of them. You're going to even lose the one Detroit versus Detroit.
Man.
All right.
This weekend.